the threat is there. I wouldn't say that the worst weapons are always reused. I mean, we didn't reuse gas warfare in World War II, for example. That may sound like a trivial example, but it's not always the rule that we always reuse the worst weapons. However, there's no question about it that every total war that America's been in, or Britain's been in, going back for 7 centuries now, has been in a fourth turning, and every fourth turning has had a total war. So sort of have no type A errors, no type B errors. They're all there, right? And it's also true that because they're total wars, people try to push the box and thinking of ways, ever more effective ways of bringing the conflict to a close. I think it's anyone that's familiar with the Civil War in America knows that if either Richmond or Washington, D.C. had possessed a weapon of mass destruction, that they would have used it in 1863 or 1864, right? And in World War II, we enlisted our best and brightest young people, our brainiest and most creative and most brilliant young people, to work 24/7 to invent one in the Manhattan Project, which we immediately put to use. Right now, we're entering a fourth turning, and we've been entering fourth turning. We're moving toward what will likely be a climax of fourth turning with what, 9 or 10 nations? You want to count Iran or not? I don't know. You be the judge. But 9 or 10 nations with nuclear weapons, and maybe other horrors, that we haven't thought about. Maybe invasive nanobots or viruses, or I don't know. It's obviously not the purpose of my book to judge the technological capabilities, but to acknowledge the danger. And in the last chapter, where I talk a lot about what's likely to happen in the early 21st century, I go through sort of more positive versus more negative outcomes, and what it will mean, and whether, to what extent it will have an impact on the cycle itself. I just try to look at the facts where they are. One thing I will say, though, is that one positive thing about fourth turnings is that they allow the world to reset the global rules, right? Right now, there are no global rules. I mean, anyone can do anything they want, right? And we have no concerted nations. We have no effective alliances. There's no rules to enforce anymore. If we ever want to do a regime of effective control of weapons of mass destruction, such as nuclear weapons, truly effective, right? Surveillance, right? Enforcement, it would take a fourth turning to impose it. Do you understand what I mean? And by the way, I would say the same thing for a lot of the other things people often dream about, like effective rules on, carbon control, or all these other things that people think about as being the future. It's only going to happen after an event like that, which one nation or a assortment of nations will have the authority to actually impose it on the world. I'm just talking about historical experience. I'm saying those are the times at which we have succeeded in doing that. And the reason why that's interesting to me is that if you ask a lot of experts in nuclear strategy and policy about, the likelihood of nuclear war, they say, well, accidents and misunderstandings happen all the time, and they often put it about 1% per year. Well, 1% per year, well, you can go for decades, and with a pretty good chance of not experiencing something at 1% per year. But do you want to go for another 100 years at 1% per year, right? That's kind of where the course we're on now. And I would say it's going to be greater than 1% per year, because pretty soon a lot more actors are going to have it, right? Have this capability. So the interesting question is though a fourth turning might increase the possibility that they would be used near term, it might long term be able to introduce a regime in which it would reduce the possibility that it would be used in the future. And the reason I say all this is because remember, the other side of a fourth turning is a golden age. You know what I mean? Of social order, not just domestically, but globally.